Hey, my name is Kyle. I'm 24 single and live alone in a small but adequate apartment just outside Lafayette. It's nothing spectacular, but it keeps things pleasant. I've been working at a logistics company for a while. It's not my dream job, but it pays the bills. I've never been one to chase people or get involved in drama. I prefer my life basic, consistent, and predictable. A while back, I started hanging out with a coworker named Paul. He's 22, a bit younger than me, but kind. We hit it off quickly, sharing a similar sense of humor, a love for old school hip hop, and a habit of shooting hoops after work. Honestly, I didn't expect to make real friends at this job, but we started grabbing meals after shifts, texting ridiculous memes and crashing at each other's places to hang out or play video games. Yeah. One Friday after work, Paul invited me to his place. My mom's making dinner, he said. You've got to try her garlic chicken. It'll blow your mind. I laughed and agreed. We drove to his house, a nice, well-kept two-story in a quiet neighborhood. It looked like a place someone had poured a lot of effort into over time. As soon as we walked in, the smell from the kitchen hit me like a warm hug, garlic butter, herbs all perfectly blended. Then I saw Paul's mom. She stepped out of the kitchen wearing an apron and drying her hands with a dish towel. Her name was Madison, and she wasn't what I expected. She didn't look like the typical mom. With long blonde hair tied loosely, a few strands falling across her cheek, bright blue eyes, and an undeniably attractive figure, she seemed to be in her mid-30s, not 40, maybe even younger if you didn't know better. There was something about her that shifted the room's atmosphere. She didn't have to try. People just noticed her. Hello, she said, her smile warm and confident. You must be Kyle. Paul's mentioned you a few times. I grinned back. All good, I hope. She laughed lightly. Only good stuff. Dinner's almost ready. Make yourself at home. I sat at the dining table while Paul went upstairs to grab something. Madison returned to the kitchen, and I couldn't help stealing glances at her. I wasn't trying to be weird, but there was something about her, how she moved, how she carried herself. It wasn't just her looks. It was the energy she gave off, like something deep inside her hadn't seen the light in a while. Dinner was incredible, far better than I'd imagined. We sat around the table cracking jokes and sharing silly work stories. Madison chimed in, teasing Paul and laughing at his comments. Her sharp wit caught me off guard. I remember thinking she's nothing like my mom, not at all what I expected. Later that night when I got home, I kept replaying the evening in my head, not the food or the stories, just her. Something about Madison stuck with me. You must. Over the next few weeks, I started going over more often, sometimes to hang with Paul, sometimes just to watch a game. Madison was always there, well-dressed and effortless, even when she wasn't trying. Her smile lingered on me a bit too long. She'd ask how I was, what I'd been up to, and she remembered things I'd mentioned, like how I'd take my coffee or what shows I'd watched. Nothing major, but it was enough to catch my attention. I didn't tell anyone, especially not Paul, but I could feel something building. Every time I stepped through their front door, the air felt different, charged. She wasn't exactly flirting, but the way her eyes followed me across the room spoke louder than words, or the way she'd stand a little closer than necessary when she handed me a drink. I knew it, and I'm pretty sure she did too. We just hadn't said it out loud yet. I am. One Saturday, we were in the living room watching a game. Paul got a call and stood up. Shoot, I forgot. I promised my friend I'd grab something for him. I'll be back in about 20. He grabbed his keys and left before I could say anything. I felt the room shift as soon as the door clicked shut. Madison walked in calm and slow and sat on the couch next to me, not across, not nearby, but right beside me, close enough that our arms almost touched. She glanced at the TV, then turned to me, her voice low like she'd been waiting for this moment. We're finally alone. When I looked at her, she didn't look away. That's when I knew it wasn't just politeness or curiosity. She was into me fully, honestly, fearlessly, and I couldn't pretend I wasn't feeling it too. When she said we're finally alone, everything went quiet. The TV was still on, the game playing, but I couldn't hear it. Madison had my full attention. She held my gaze. No awkward smiles, no nervous laughter. She didn't backtrack or hide it. She said it like she'd been saving those words for the perfect moment when Paul would step out. I didn't shy away either. I met her gaze and gave a small, silent smile, not cocky, not smug, just enough to say, yeah, I get it. She shifted slightly, turning to face me on the couch, one leg tucked under her, her arm resting on the back of the couch, her fingers inches from my shoulder. Kyle Ishiru. She started, then paused, choosing her words carefully. I don't usually do things like this. Actually, I've never done anything like this before. Time. I leaned in just a bit, not too much to show her she wasn't talking to empty air. I'm not crazy, she added quickly, like she needed to say it before doubt crept in. I know you're Paul's friend. I know I'm older. I know how this looks. But when you're here, when I talk to you, I don't feel like a mom. I feel alive. I feel young. I feel like I want something again. She didn't need to say more. I got it. You're not just someone's mom, I told her. You're you. You don't have to justify it. Her expression softened like she'd been ready to defend herself and realized she didn't need to. She exhaled softly and looked down for a second as if gathering herself. Well, I had Paul when I was 19, she said. His dad left before he was born. I raised him on my own. I've always been the dependable one, the stable one, the mom, but never just Madison. I forgot what it's like to be seen as a woman. She looked up at me, her voice catching on the last line. That's when I really saw her not as Paul's mom, not as a fantasy, but as someone real. This wasn't a game. She wasn't chasing thrills for fun. She was lonely, had been for a long time, and without even trying, I'd touched a part of her she'd buried deep. I didn't rush to speak. I just sat with her in silence for a moment. Then I carefully reached up and brushed a stray strand of hair from her cheek. She didn't stop me, didn't flinch. Her eyes closed for a heartbeat, as if that small gesture meant more than it should. You call. The air between us felt electric, but not out of control. We both knew what was happening, and neither of us wanted to cheapen it by rushing. We didn't kiss that day. We didn't go beyond that one small touch, but something had changed. We'd crossed a line, and neither of us would pretend it didn't exist. There was no going back. Paul came back about 20 minutes later, as promised, with snacks and a couple of sodas. Madison was already in the kitchen, acting like nothing had happened. I was back on the couch pretending the game still held my attention, but I wasn't watching the screen. I was thinking about her, how she looked at me, how much I wanted to see her again, not as Paul's mom, but as Madison, the woman who'd let me in. Be around. A few days later, she texted me. At first, it was casual. Hey, hope you're doing well. Then it got more direct. I've been thinking about our talk. You free on Friday? It's just us. We didn't say it outright, but the message was clear. Paul was going camping with friends that weekend. She mentioned it casually, but I knew she was giving me the green light. That Friday evening, I showed up at 6. Her hair was down, her makeup light, but effective, and she wore jeans and a t-shirt. Nothing flashy, just her. And she looked amazing. We ate together in the kitchen. No music, just the sound of our voices. That night, she laughed more than I'd ever seen. I think her cheeks turned red when I told her how beautiful she looked. She poured us some wine, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was sneaking around. It felt right, like I belonged there. Yours. After dinner, we moved to the living room. She sat beside me on the same couch in the same position, but this time the air was different. No tension, just the steady build of something we both wanted. She rested her head lightly on my shoulder. I placed my hand over hers. You still okay with this? She asked. More than okay, I said. Then we kissed for the first time. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It was slow, deliberate, full of everything we hadn't said a meaningful kiss. That night I stayed late. We talked, kissed, held each other. Not once did it feel wrong. For both of us, what we'd found felt new, exciting, and real. Oh, Before I left, she gave me a look I'd never seen before. Not nervous, not guilty. I don't know where this is going, she said, but I don't want it to end. Then don't, I told her. We'll figure it out. She nodded and gave me a real smile, like she'd finally stopped pretending. Things changed after that, not in a loud, dramatic way, with no fireworks or big declarations. It shifted quietly in ways that mattered. We didn't call it a relationship. We didn't set rules or talk about the future. We just kept moving forward. I saw Madison again a few days later. Paul had invited me over to watch a game. I said yes immediately, knowing she'd be there. When I walked in, she was in the kitchen rinsing dishes. She glanced over her shoulder and smiled. That was all it took. No words, no touch, but it said everything I needed to hear. I haven't stopped thinking about you either. Paul was in full sports mode that day, yelling at the TV and throwing popcorn like a maniac, completely oblivious. Madison brought us drinks and sat across the room like everything was normal. We played along like pros, no weird tension, no awkward silences. But every time our eyes met, the connection sparked again. After the game, Paul walked me to the door, still grumbling about a bad call. Madison stayed back at the kitchen doorway, holding a glass of wine, watching calmly. Just as I stepped out, our eyes locked one more time. Later that night, I got a text from her. Wish we could have had a minute alone. I texted back, me too. Can't stop thinking about you. Her reply came fast. Tomorrow. I didn't ask what she meant. I just said yes. We had a system now, unspoken and subtle but solid. When Paul had a late shift, went out with friends, or was away for the weekend, she'd find a way to let me know. Sometimes it was a simple text, sometimes just a look. I always knew when it was time. Those early visits made me nervous. I'd park a street away, wait for the lights to dim, sometimes sneak in through the side if the door was unlocked. Not because we felt guilty, at least not toward each other, but because we knew the world wouldn't understand, especially not her son. But once I was inside, everything melted away. She'd be waiting, no makeup, hair, down in a hoodie and leggings, always with a smile that seemed like it had been hidden all week until that moment. We talked a lot about life, not just us, her job, my work. She sometimes felt invisible. I often felt like I didn't fit anywhere. But with her, I didn't feel like an outsider or a guest. I felt like I belonged. Sometimes we cooked together. Other times we curled up on the couch, her feet in my lap, watching a movie neither of us cared about. Some nights we didn't even need to talk. Just holding each other was enough. She opened up in ways I don't think she did with anyone else. She told me how Paul's dad left before he was born, how she never remarried because no one made her feel seen, how hard it was to raise a son alone, and how proud she was of him, even if he'd never fully understand her sacrifices. I shared too how I grew up in a house where silence spoke louder than words, how I always felt driven to do something bigger, but never knew what, how most people my age didn't connect like she did, didn't listen like she did. My, it was never just physical though, that was there, real and electric. What pulled me in was how she looked at me when I talked. I felt like I mattered, like I wasn't invisible anymore. We found small ways to connect between visits. I'd send her a song I thought she'd like. She'd snap a photo of her coffee with a note, "Wish you were here." I'd tell a dumb joke and she'd reply, "With a heart." I knew she didn't send that to anyone. But as things grew, the weight of the secret got heavier. Not guilt, but the strain of hiding something so real. Paul had no clue. If anything, he liked me more now. He started calling me his best bro, inviting me to more stuff, introducing me like I was part of the crew. He even joked once, "Man, if you're not careful, you'll end up family." Madison and I kept up the act. We got good at it, too good. She avoided texting too much when Paul was home just to be safe. I stopped liking her social media posts. When I came over, we made sure not to sit too close, not to lock eyes too long, and definitely not to touch. But we slipped sometimes. Once when I told a joke, she laughed so hard she touched my knee, then froze. Paul didn't notice, but we did. Or when a song played in the room, the same one we'd listened to that night on her couch. She gave me a look a fraction too long, and I had to turn away. We both knew this couldn't last forever, but neither of us wanted to end it. One night, lying next to her in bed, the room quiet except for the soft rhythm of her breathing, I asked, "Ever think about what happens if Paul finds out?" She nodded slowly. "I think about it all the time." Then she looked at me earnest. "I'd lose him. You might lose him too." That hit harder than I expected. "I don't want that," I told her. "Neither do I," she said, "but I don't want to let this go either." She reached for my hand and I held it tight. We didn't talk about the future that night, no promises, no what-ifs. We just stayed present, two people who shouldn't be together, but somehow made it work. By summer, Madison and I had found our rhythm. It wasn't about sneaking around anymore. It just felt like us. When Paul was home, we knew how to move carefully, how to time our messages, stay under the radar. It wasn't paranoia, it was survival. Surprisingly, we got better at it like we'd been training without realizing it. What struck me most was how normal it felt. I'd come over and she'd greet me casually like I was just another of Paul's friends. Paul would grab me a drink and we'd hang out upstairs or in the garage. Then when he left for class or hit the gym late, I'd find myself back downstairs, leaning on the kitchen counter while she made tea, both of us pretending the air wasn't buzzing. Fire. We didn't need to talk about it anymore. No labels, no deep relationship talks. But every touch of her fingers, every quiet night together meant something. Even when we weren't alone, it was there. Like the day in the backyard, Paul was messing with the fire pit when Madison brought me a plate. Her fingertips barely grazed mine, but it lingered half a second too long. No one else saw, but I felt it echo in my chest for 10 minutes. She had a way of making me feel seen even in a crowd. When I spoke, she didn't just wait her turn, she listened, really listened. She remembered the little things. She made me feel like what I said mattered, and that feeling was intoxicating. One night we were alone again. Paul had gone to see a girl he was dating and wouldn't be back till late. Madison came to me as soon as the door clicked shut. No hesitation. We didn't rush anything that was never us. We curled up under a blanket on the couch like it was the most natural thing in the world. We talked, really talked, not just about how things were going, but about life, our past, regrets, hopes. At my age, she said softly, I thought I'd have more. Not money or success. I mean, love someone who notices me, someone to share life with. Without thinking, I said, you have that. She looked at me and her face changed like maybe she believed it. She leaned in and kissed me slower than usual, like she didn't want the moment to end. Honestly, neither did I. Well, later that night after our time together, she fell asleep in my arms for the first time. I realized I wasn't scared of getting caught. I wasn't worried about what this meant. I just didn't want to lose it. The next morning, I left before Paul got back. We didn't say goodbye like lovers, just like two friends playing it safe. But before I walked out, she slipped her fingers into my palm for a brief moment. That one gesture said more than words could. Haddock. We got bolder over time, or maybe we just got used to how things were. I'd text her in the middle of the day, and she'd send back a soft photo of her smile. Nothing suggestive, just personal, private. Paul still had no idea. If anything, he trusted me more. He'd talk about friends who ditched him or girlfriends who ghosted him, and he'd say, you've been solid since day one. Something twisted in my chest, not exactly guilt, but a reminder of how close I was to the edge. He even said once, you're the only guy I trust around my mom. She really likes you. I smiled, said nothing. Madison and I never talked about what would happen if we got caught. It was like we silently agreed that if we ignored the risk, it might not catch up. Then came a weekend that was our longest stretch alone. Paul was going on a 3-day hiking trip with friends. I was already on my way as he pulled out of the driveway. It felt like a little pocket of reality. We made pancakes that morning. I danced with her barefoot in the kitchen. We watched movies in the middle of the afternoon like we owed the world nothing. She didn't wear makeup all weekend, and I swear she looked even more beautiful. That second night, we sat on the back porch sipping wine under the stars. She was curled up next to me in a throw blanket, calm. I wish we had this, she said almost a whisper. We do, I told her. I mean, outside these walls, she clarified, for real, not just stolen time. That. I didn't answer right away. I just pulled her closer and said, I know. Then I added, I want that too, but I don't want to lose what we have now. She nodded against my shoulder. Neither do I. Then she looked up at me and said, so let's keep it safe as long as we can. That became our unspoken agreement. No long-term promises, no big announcements. Just keep going, keep it safe, keep it ours. That night in bed, I remember thinking, this isn't a fling. It wasn't just about fun or dodging consequences. It felt bigger, more real than anything I'd ever had. And the crazy part, we were pulling it off. No one suspected a thing. Not Paul, not neighbors, not coworkers, not friends. It was like we'd stumbled into a secret little world just for us, and somehow we were smart and careful enough to keep it. Whoa. It's been almost a year now. A year since Paul ran out to the store, and Madison said we're finally alone. I can still hear her voice, see her face like it just happened. What started as a single moment has grown into something deeper. Our secret is still just that secret. We've been so careful. Every text is deleted, every look practiced, every visit timed to the second. No one knows. I stop by often like I always have. To the outside world, I'm still just a friend, Paul's buddy, the reliable guy who jokes with his mom and seems like a stand-up dude. But behind closed doors, I'm the one she curls up with at night, the one who knows the smell of her shampoo, who can read her mood by the way she sighs when she opens the door. Me. Most people think secrets like ours burn out fast, that they fall apart. This one didn't. It grew, it became something else. We don't see each other every day. Life doesn't work that way. Sometimes 2 weeks go by with just a quick, safe text. But when we do have time, it's still real, maybe more real now than ever. Paul recently invited me over for a movie night, just a casual hangout with him, me and a few coworkers. Madison stayed upstairs most of the evening, giving us space. Around 10 people started leaving. Paul walked one of the guys to his car, while I stayed behind clearing empty cups and plates. I was in the kitchen when I heard footsteps on the stairs. I didn't need to turn, I could feel her coming. When I looked back, she was in the hallway just watching me. She didn't say anything, didn't move, just held my gaze. Then barely above a whisper, she mouthed, "Midnight." "Ba-ba-bum." I gave a small nod. That night, I parked down the street like always and walked the rest of the way. The house was dark, just as we'd planned. I came in through the side gate and slipped out through the back door like we'd done a dozen times before. She was in the kitchen barefoot and a loose top, hair down. She looked tired, but at peace. We didn't rush into anything, we don't anymore. We stood there for a long moment, arms around each other, not saying a word. Later, as we lay in bed, she asked quietly, "Do you ever think about what this really is?" "Every time I see you," I told her. "I mean, where's it going?" I didn't answer right away. She moved closer. "Because I do. I wonder what it'd be like if we weren't hiding, if I could kiss you in the morning without caring who's watching." Well, I wanted that too. I wanted to tell her we'd figure it out, but the truth was, we couldn't, not now. "Not yet. I think about it too," I said. She nodded. "It's more than we expected, isn't it?" I looked at her and said, "Yeah, it is. We didn't try to label it or make promises we might not keep. But in that quiet moment, I think we both knew this wasn't just an escape. It wasn't something we'd regret later. It was love, quiet, messy, fragile. A love that lived in the gaps between the rest of our lives." She turned and rested her head on my chest. "As long as he doesn't know, he won't," I said. "We're careful, we're smart. And if he ever does." I paused, took a breath. "Then we deal with it together." The next morning I left like I always do, no trace, no evidence. Her demeanor shifted slightly as she walked me to the door. Her eyes holding mine for an extra second. She gave my hand a light squeeze before letting go. Paul was still asleep upstairs. The house was still. I stepped outside, got in my car, and blended into the morning. Just another guy starting his day. That's how it's been even now. We find ways to be together. We cherish the moments not because they're wild or thrilling, but because they mean something. Because even though none of this was planned, even though it only exists in stolen moments and quiet corners, it's real. Last week, lying in the early morning light, she said, "I stopped feeling lonely the day you walked into my house." And I told her the day you let me stay, I stopped feeling lost. So where does it end? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe this is how it stays, our small truth hidden in the bigger world. No fireworks, no big drama, just a quiet love no one sees. For us, that's enough. Bye-bye. The story of Kyle and Madison reveals a powerful lesson about the human need for connection and the courage to embrace authentic emotions even when they defy societal norms. It teaches us that beneath the roles we play, parent, friend, or colleague, lies a deeper desire to be seen and understood as individuals. Madison's vulnerability, sharing her loneliness and longing to feel alive again, reminds us that everyone carries hidden struggles, and a single moment of genuine attention can awaken something profound. Kyle's willingness to listen and connect shows the transformative power of empathy, but their secrecy also highlights the delicate balance between pursuing personal happiness and protecting those we care about, like Paul. This tension underscores the importance of self-awareness and responsibility in our choices as our actions ripple through the lives of others. Their quiet, unspoken love, built in stolen moments, speaks to the beauty and fragility of finding something real, even in unconventional circumstances. This story resonates because it captures the messy emotional truth of human relationships. Sometimes the heart wants what it wants, and navigating that takes both bravery and caution. Have you ever found yourself torn between following your heart and doing what's right? Share your experiences in the comments. We'd love to hear how you faced these moments. If this story touched you, hit that subscribe button and join our community for more raw, heartfelt tales that explore the depths of life and love. Let's keep this conversation alive and dive into what makes us human together.